See, there's something to be said for living in the woods.
That's a good idea. I'm moving.
All right, you guys want to get started about that time?
Anybody judging me when I go for walks?
Yes, Phyllis. You muted Phil.
All right. Yeah, I hear you.
I cannot hear Phil.
Okay.
You cannot hear?
No,
Can you hear me now?
I can't hear you now.
We got you.
Oh, wait a minute. You know what's going on? I think I've got my,
Hey, whoever
Greg?
drew on the screen needs to erase that or we'll see it for the whole slideshow.
I bet I did it. How do I erase it though?
There should be an eraser in your toolbar or a clear.
When you mute all participants, Phil is
And
muted.
Undo. Did that undo it? No. Oh, eraser. There we go. I got rid of it.
all right, can you hear me now? Wave at me, Forrest, if you can hear me.
I can hear you, Phil, but just barely.
Phil, I can hear you very, very low.
Hello?
Let's see. Let me see if I can. Is there a way to turn up the volume on the microphone?
A few minutes ago, Phil, you were very loud. Are you on 2 different devices or?
Right now, I'm on the computer. The problem is I can't get the volume to go up on the microphone. Any hints?
There might be some controls kind of in the hardware panel in the operating system, but I guess that might be more difficult to navigate through. Are you able to, is it built into a laptop? Are you able to, I don't know if it's maybe just speaking up a little bit?
Yeah, I can't hear. Everybody's breaking up really bad. Okay, let me try it again. I'm gonna get back on my phone here.
Hey, it's Amber. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, Amber.
Hey.
Amber, I hear you.
Hey, Mac.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Much better. Okay, so now I'm talking on my phone, so that's what I'm. I'll try and stick with this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I would like to open the April 2020 Planning Commission meeting. I'll do that again. And so what I'd like to do again, just to reiterate about proceedings, if you right now pretty much everybody is muted, and if you're not muted, please mute your microphone so we don't get any background noises from others. And then if when it's time to speak and you want to say something, raise your hand if you can on this on the participants list, and then I'll recognize you. Now, if you're trying to say something, you can't raise a hand or something, then go ahead and speak out. But I might have to get you to wait for a minute to kind of finish off what we're we're talking about. So let's just kind of go with the flow here. So what I'd like to do to start with is welcome everybody and online. I hope everybody's staying safe. And to start with, I'd like to talk a little bit about the rules since we have quite a few people here. It looks like there's at least 35 people attending this right now. So I'll go ahead and read a statement about our proceedings. The commission will be presented with agenda items by the city planning department. The representative for the agenda item will have an opportunity to make comments or answer specific questions from the commission. I'll then open a public hearing if it's appropriate, and we'll use that opportunity to address, you can use that opportunity to address the commission about a given issue. We want everybody to be heard, and we ask that you keep your time to speak of about 5 minutes. And please, please keep your comments relevant to the case at hand. After everyone has spoken, I'll close the public hearing. The representative and the staff will have another opportunity to answer any questions that might have been brought up during the hearing. And then we'll open the floor for motions by the commission and a vote. The commission is going to vote based on the applicable state and local laws, the City Comprehensive Plan 2030, and for the good of the community. Now, in addition to the normal agenda, we are a administrative body that has to deal with development and subdivision plats. And so I want to give you some basic information about that as well. By Alabama statute, a municipal planning commission such as ours is the final approval authority for subdivision plats. With regards to subdivision plats, the commission acts as an administrative body and is bound by the limitations contained in state laws, the city's zoning ordinance, and subdivision regulations that we have adopted previously. While public hearings are required for each preliminary plat, and we welcome any and all public comments on these items, please understand that this commission's authority is strictly limited to confirming that the plat meets or exceeds the specific requirements codified in laws and regulations that I previously described. All right, so the first order of business is citizens communication, and this is a time where a citizen can come forward and speak on anything that's in the consent agenda, and tonight we have 9 different items, including meeting minutes, or something that is not on the agenda at all. So is there anybody out there that would like to speak at this time? Seeing no hands and hearing no one, I'm going to move on to the consent agenda. Tonight, as I mentioned, the consent agenda has 9 items, including 3 annexations, 5 final subdivision plats, and a bond extension. Mr. Cotton.
Yes, sir. Just a quick comment. The agenda did get adjusted slightly before it sent out, so we actually just have 8 items on the consent agenda.
Okay, did we pull one or did it?
Just a point of clarification.
Okay, did we pull one?
Yeah, we did. We had one that got pulled. You'll see it next month. It was a final plat request.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, so as the commission's aware, we have a Monday packet meeting, and we reviewed all of the consent agenda items with you at that time. The commission may choose to approve the consent agenda in its entirety if there's any particular item that a commission member would like to pull for discussion purposes. That would also be appropriate if that's the will of any particular member.
Okay, would any of the commissioners like to pull any of these items off of the consent agenda for additional consideration? Mac Lazenby, I see your hand raised.
Yes. Yeah, if we could pull item number 7 for a little bit of more discussion. It's the Brentwood subdivision phase 1.
Okay, we'll pull that one and add that to. We'll add that to new business as the first item.
Very good. Thank you. If that's been removed, may I make a motion to approve the consent agenda without item 7, but including the packet meeting minutes of March 9th and the regular meeting of March 12th.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Who, let's see. Amber, are you going to be able to tell who gave that second?
Yeah, I have Mac and Jana.
Okay, all right. If that turns into issue, just pipe in and say, ask who said that.
Sure,
Okay.
we probably also need to do a roll call.
Right. So I'll go ahead and so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, let's go ahead and have that roll call vote for the consent agenda.
Okay, Wayne Bledsoe,
Aye.
Robin Bridges,
Aye.
Phil Chancellor,
Aye.
Jana Jager,
Aye.
Mac Lazenby,
Aye.
Marcus Marshall,
Aye.
Warren McCord,
Aye.
Nanette Reese,
Aye.
Bob Reitenbaugh.
Last but not least, aye.
Yay.
All right, motion carries. Let's move on to new business. And as we said, we're going to discuss the Brentwood subdivision phase 1, which is a revised final plat approval for performance residential development. Is there?
All right, Mike,
can
check. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, Jay, are you the? Yeah, go ahead.
All right, everybody. Good evening. First case for you today is a subdivision for a revised final plat. This is a request to subdivide a little less than 19.5 acres into 41 performance single-family residential lots, 2 open space lots, and 3 future development lots. The location is east of Riverwood Drive and west of Bent Creek Road at the terminus of Champions Boulevard, as you see on the prox map here. Also, you can see that this development is split between the CDD zoning district and the DDH zoning district. Or if you can go to the next slide. Here's the revised final plat. This plat came to you and has been viewed for you a few times, most recently in December of this past year. Planning Commission approved this as a revised final plat, and this one before you is indicative of that plat. The purpose of this is they have separated it into 2 phases. The second phase of which has to wait until the existing right-of-way for Bonnie Glen goes through the vacation process, at which point the remainder of the single-family lots that are affected by it will come before you as a phase 2 plat in a revised final. So you'll see that in another couple of months.
Okay, thank you. I guess I need to ask a point of order, Mr. Cotton. Now that we've taken this out of the consent agenda, it requires a public hearing?
As final plat, it does not.
Oh, it's a final plat. Sorry about that. It does not. Okay, thank you. I stand corrected. Okay, so that's
Also, because it's final plat. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I see a hand, Mac Lazenby. Go ahead.
Yeah, with the staff, Jay, do you have the airport overlay slide that?
Yes, we do.
Yes, sir, we do.
Could we see it now, please? That's the overlay slide is the one we got the noise contours on there.
Yes, sir. You've got the noise, it's in the noise zone as well as the runway, a portion of it is in the runway protection zone.
Yeah, okay, all right. Mr. Chairman, are we open for discussion?
Yes, now's the time.
Okay. If my fellow commissioners would kind of indulge me just a little bit, I see this maybe from a little different perspective than others, in that I was airport manager and director of aviation in Florida for several years, many years, with several airports during the growth period in Florida, and suffered through a lot of building around airports and airport expansion and that type of thing. And I may offer just a little different perspective. This subdivision is not a subdivision that's near an airport or close to an airport. This subdivision is directly on the center line of the approach and departure pass for the ILS runway. And an ILS runway is the one that's designated to be used during inclement weather and times of low visibility, and is the preferred priority runway for larger, heavier aircraft, because usually it's the longer of the other runways. And so from that perspective, this subdivision is unique. Truthfully, I don't think I've ever seen one so directly on the center line as this one is. Now, from my experience in full disclosure of selling properties and that sort of thing, it would come out the proximity of these properties on to the runway. But back when this runway was extended and East Glen Avenue was reconstructed, there was a normal controversy. Airports usually have more than normal controversy, and this was not much different, but it was successfully accomplished to reroute Glen Avenue and extend the runway with some other mitigating factors. And one of those mitigating factors was that the FAA, in normal procedure in funding something like this, would require that all properties within a certain noise zone level be constructed with noise mitigation practices. But the Auburn Council agreed only to making this a recommendation, not a requirement, but recommended that structures built in these areas be done with noise abatement consideration. And how you notify the public can be done in many different ways. But I would like for us to consider maybe just making a note on the final plat that specific lots that come in this large cone of influence in a noise zone, that a note be put on there that it is recommended for those lots that noise mitigation practices be exercised. It's not a requirement, but from experience, it's better to notify everybody as early as you can of the actual circumstances. These people have a right to be in, to live in here. They'll choose to be in here, but the sooner they know they're going to may have a noise problem, the easier it is to mitigate those situations later. And I would offer that, I guess, Mr. Chairman, as a motion to approve this subdivision with that note added to the plat, or some other method suggested by the staff.
Okay, so is that a motion?
I make it as a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Nanette, is that you for a second?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And then Warren, you raised your hand. You have something else you want to
Yes,
speak on?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we modify the recommendation just a little, the amendment rather, to the plat, that it be so noted on the plat, rather than say we're suggesting you have noise mitigation measures applied to the house. Make a note on the plat, Mac, that it says that this subdivision, the majority of this subdivision, is within the runway protection zone. And that would mean you are notifying any buyer of a lot or a house there that they were in the runway protection zone, without telling them that they could then choose to mitigate or not. Would
So you say,
Hmm?
so you want to amend it to say both, to say noise zone and runway protection zone, or just runway protection zone?
Well, if it's in the noise zone too, yeah. In other words, all I'm saying is
I would second that as an amendment to the motion.
Okay, is that, were you finished, Warren?
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and then we have an amendment to the motion. So, and then we also have a, let's see. If somebody made the original motion, can they also second the amendment?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so what we're going to vote on first is the amendment, unless there's any further discussion.
Can you restate the amendment?
As I understand it, the way the motion is to approve but make a note in the motion has a note that mentions both back the runway protection zone and in the airport noise zone. And that's the amended motion right now. So I have a motion and I have a second. So any further discussion on that? Okay, Amber, let's do a roll call vote.
Wayne Bledsoe,
Aye.
Robin Bridges,
Yes.
Phil Chancellor,
Yes?
Jana Jager,
Yes.
Mac Lazenby,
Yes.
Marcus Marshall,
Yes.
Warren McCord,
Yes.
Nanette Reese,
Yes.
and last but not least, Bob Breitenbach.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries.
The amendment, the amendment.
The amended motion. Right, the amended
No, we
motion
just
carries.
voted on the amendment. Now you got to vote on the motion as amended.
Okay. Let's go ahead and have another voice vote there, Amber. And this is on the motion as amended.
This is for the motion as amended.
Right.
The motion as amended. Got it. I'm going last name only. Wayne Bledsoe, not Bledsoe.
Aye.
Bridges,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Jager,
Yes.
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Breitenbach.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. All right, we're going to continue with new business. This is item number 10, which is Woodward Oaks Phase 4, PL 2020-00163. It's a preliminary plat approval for performance residential development. Mr. Kipp, are you there? I don't see him on the list. Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Come on down, Mr. Kipp.
You're muted.
Yeah, if you're on there, Logan, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, this is a request for a preliminary plat approval for a fourth phase of Woodward Oaks Master Development. It consists of 91 single-family detached lots and 2 open space lots. The zoning is PDD, so it's in the Woodward Oaks Master Development. That was approved back in 2017. And let's see. Forrest, could you advance the slide, please? There's the plat showing the extension of James Burt Parkway going north with kind of several cul-de-sac roads at the, branching out from there. Miracle Road you can see to the east, which has been realigned and would essentially James Burt Parkway would be the new Miracle Road, more or less. Next slide, please. And this is the most recent master development plan. You can see phase 4 is that area, the northernmost area. And there is an aerial. Oh, there was an aerial showing the overall site. Staff did not receive. Staff received one comment from Auburn University, kind of with some questions about the connectivity for Miracle Road. There is some land that the university owns to the north of here, and just wanted to know if Miracle Road northbound was going to be closed off, and it will remain open as far as I know. And the Miracle Road going south will also remain open for the foreseeable future. No other comments. Staff is recommending approval, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, would the applicant, does the applicant, Brett Baskin, you have anything to say? Would you like to say?
Be happy to answer any
Okay.
questions.
Good, thank you. Okay, this requires a public hearing. So at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing for Woodward Oaks Phase 4. Is there anybody that would like to speak? Okay, let me ask a question before I close this public hearing. Mr. Cotton, are there members of the public in the room, the building with you?
Not a one.
Not a
Well,
one? Okay.
Just staff.
Okay. And then I've got 10 attendees on this list. If they had any, is there a way for them to be able to speak if they would like to?
Yes, so Phil, they'll have the same opportunity to raise their hand if they'd like, and then from my seat, I'm able to allow them to speak at that time if you choose to recognize them.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so I'm looking at the attendees list and I see no hands raised. And so what I'll do is call the public hearing closed and ask for questions, comments, or a motion from the commission.
I move to approve Woodward Oaks
Second.
Phase 4 preliminary plat.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Warren, you have your hand raised, but you don't have.
No, I didn't intend to. Can you de-raise it or do I?
You have to somehow.
With
Okay,
staff
so
comments.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Amber, please, roll call vote.
Okay, Bledsoe,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Jaeger,
Yes.
Lazenby, Mack. Hello?
His microphone's off. Hey, Mac, get up.
I got it. Yes, I vote in favor of with the staff comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay,
you guys,
motion
you
carries.
you guys missed me, but I'm also a yes, Marcus.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Marcus.
That's no problem.
All right, motion carries. We'll move on to item number 11, which is the Preserve Phase 4C and 6B, a preliminary plat. It's PL 2020-00170. It's a plat approval for a performance residential development. Mr. Weintraut is the staff.
Good evening. I'd like to make a correction. This is not a performance subdivision. The rest of the preserve will be conventional. This is however, a master development plan that was approved in 2004. The property owners are the Preserve Land LLC. David Slocum is representing them. This is located up on Farmville Road at the intersection with Bud Black. That's a good one to say. And we've seen quite a few phases. This has started picking up the last few years with development. It will be for 49 conventional residential lots and one open space lot. And the open space lot will be in 4C. And you can see part of the subdivision is in the Master Development Plan Phase 4, and the remainder is in Phase 6, which is why we have it broke down separately. There are really no major issues with this. It meets the requirements of the Master Development Plan Agreement. And this will actually complete Phase 4 of the preserve, and we recommend approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody from the applicant that would like to speak? Okay, seeing no one. This does require a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing. Anybody who would like to speak, please raise your hand. Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. Ask for questions, comments, or a motion from the commission.
I'll make a motion to approve PC case PL 2020-170 with all staff comments.
A second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and have a roll call vote. Amber?
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Jaeger,
Yes.
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carries. Let's move on to item number 12, which is Longleaf Crossing, Phase 5A, PL 2020-182. Mr. Kip.
Yes, sir. This is a preliminary plat request for 12 performance residential lots. 10 of those will be duplexes with one lot for open space and one lot to be conveyed for the public greenway, City of Auburn. The subject property is at the end of Downs Way, the southern terminus of Downs Way. It is part of a master development plan known as College Crossing that goes back to 2000. The staff is recommending approval, and we did not receive any correspondence or comments from any residents.
Okay, thank you. Is anybody representing the applicant would like to speak? Seeing no one, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing required for this one. Would anybody out there like to speak on this particular item? Okay, seeing no one. Is there somebody trying to speak? If you're not trying to speak, please mute your mic. Thank you. Okay, so now we'll entertain now the public hearing is closed, let's entertain a questions, comments, or a vote, or a motion.
Move to approve item number 12.
Second.
Mac, do you want to speak? See your hand up. Because we have a motion in a second.
Yeah, yes, and I do have a question, and it won't affect the motion. Does this property owner also own the property to the south here that goes out to Veterans Boulevard?
Yes, sir, he does.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I'm just interested in Downs Way being extended as a through street. Thank you.
Well, I'll say he owns up to the
CDD?
the cross-hatched line. A different property owner owns the part that actually connects to Veterans.
That's good. That's better than owning none of it, I think. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. In the second, Amber, please have a roll call vote.
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Jaeger,
Yes.
Lazenby,
Yes, yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. The next item is number 13, which is Longleaf Crossing Phase 5A, PL 2020-183, and this is the final plat for that same property. Mr. Kipp, you have anything to say?
Just again, it's a final plat for 12 lots, 10 being duplexes, 1 open space, and 1 greenway. Staff is recommending approval and did not receive any correspondence.
Okay, thank you. This does not require a public hearing, so I'll entertain any questions,
Mr. Chairman,
comments, or motions from the.
I'd move to approve item 12 on the agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Did you get the second, Amber?
I'm going to give that one to Robin.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, let's have a roll call vote. Amber?
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Jaeger,
Yes.
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. All right, the next item is number 14, Lawn Golf USA, PL 2020-00097. This is a kind of a two-part. This is a recommendation for a commercial conditional use, and I believe there is a waiver included. Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Phil. That's correct. This is a recommendation to City Council for conditional use approval for 2 commercial recreational uses, specifically a pickleball court as well as miniature golf course. And they are also requesting a waiver to the special development standards that require a 300-foot distance between commercial recreational uses and residential use requirements. So the property is located in the CDD zoning district, and it's approximately 3 acres in size, located on the corner of East University Drive and DeKalb Street. And the proposal is to construct a restaurant, which is permitted by right in CDD, along with 2 commercial recreational uses. You'll see the 3 pickleball courts and what appears to be a golf course. So it's not really a mini golf course. It's more akin to a traditional golf course than it is to a mini golf course. It's an actual lawn course, and it looks and feels, it looks and plays like a traditional golf course, except it's shorter and the par's lower than traditional golf. And instead of using a traditional golf ball, the ball is comprised of, it's kind of like either a pickleball or a wiffle ball, but you do use traditional golf clubs. And because of the composition of the ball, when you hit it with a traditional golf club, it doesn't go as far as a traditional golf ball. There are 18 fairways, and they average about 87 feet. And the lawn golf is played with teams of 3 individuals. So there's never going to be any more than 54 golfers on the course at any one time. And the golf course comprises about 1.5 acres. And you'll notice that the area over on the corner of DeKalb and East University is actually undisturbed. And the applicant is proposing to leave it that way. And then the parking and the pickleball courts are located on the west side of the property. And as I mentioned, the restaurant is permitted by right in CDD, and the conditional use is required for the lawn golf use as well as the pickleball court. As far as the waiver goes, the closest residence is within 20 feet. You'll see it at the southeast portion of the site plan. If you go back to the site plan for us. Right where, yep, that's it right there. So that's the residence that's the closest to the golf course, and it's about 20 feet. But because there is a residential buffer, which is pretty significant along that south boundary of the property, and a fence is required as well. And because it's not as intense a use as a commercial recreation, traditional commercial recreational uses, we felt that the waiver should be approved. Commercial recreational uses are more intense than that of a traditional golf course, which is actually permitted by right in the CDD zone. But staff chose to use the more intense land use category in an effort to provide a greater buffer between the surrounding uses. So we do recommend approval on the project, and I believe the applicant and the architect are also panelists this evening. I did speak with one of the adjoining property owners, and he did not have any, he didn't foresee any issues with the project. And I believe Tom also spoke with another adjoining property owner, or maybe just a neighbor this week. And I think they are also an attendee tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Just by way of comparison, to add to Katie's point about the spectrum of intensity of commercial recreational uses, if you were to go look at that category in table 4.1, which is a table of permitted uses, what is typically contemplated by a commercial recreational use is significantly more intense. Racetracks, stadiums, driving ranges, amusement parks, and fairgrounds. So I think that speaks to her point about this certainly being on the low end of that spectrum relative to what we typically consider commercial recreational uses.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cotton. Nanette Reed, you have your hand up? You have a comment?
Yes, I was actually going to ask while Katie was talking about the residence. It is 20 feet from property line, correct?
That's correct.
And then there is an additional 20-foot requirement with a type 3 fence?
Yes, but I do believe the applicant is also going to request, I spoke to the applicant's architect this afternoon, and I think there is, because of that south property line being, I think, over 500 feet, there is a significant cost in the type of fence that's required. So they are going to request a vegetative green screen along that south property in addition to the required plantings. So yes, there will be 20 feet of plantings along that south property line.
Okay, thank you.
And, okay, hang on here. Let's see, Mr. McCord or Dr. McCord?
Yes, I just wanted to ask Katie and Forrest, how do you calculate the parking needs for an outdoor recreation use like this?
I calculated the parking requirements based on a restaurant use as well as the commercial recreational uses. And one space is required per 4 patrons of the maximum design capacity of the facility. So they're required 30 spaces, and they have provided 36.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Lazenby?
Yes, my question, what about lighting and nighttime activities?
So they will be, when we spoke to the applicant early on, I think they did say that the applicant can, join in if I misinterpret what they said, but I think they said that they would stay open until 8 or 9 p.m. as far as the golf course goes, and they will have lighting on the greens and possibly the tee boxes. The lights are about 15 feet tall, and they're, positioned so they shine directly onto the green itself and not around on the neighboring properties.
Yes, Katie, hey, this is Ron Watson. I'm the one looking at purchasing the property. Let's see, I guess to maybe clear up a couple of things, I think we're going to do the last sketch, the last site plan that we put in. I think we're going to do away with the pickleball. And we may even add more parking, which would be good. I know the city of Auburn's built several pickleball courts, so we may look past that. Some of the questions about the lighting, if you would think of a lighting like around a hotel, something like a parking lot or something, a light that shows, it has a pretty good coverage of 50 or 60 feet radius, but it's not real tall. So it's, I'm looking at the lights being less than 20 feet, so 15 feet. And I've spoken with Mr. Charles Pick and related everything to him. He had several questions, of course, and he owns the property to the south there. And spoke everything with him. He seemed good on that. And as Ms. Katie had recommended, or had spoken earlier, it is 580 feet of fence. Being a developer, I mean, I'm conscious of what needs to be done for local residential and stuff such as that. But what I was going to try to propose, I'm kind of on a tight schedule because Mr. Pick's brother Andrew owns this property. He didn't have it listed and we moved it. So he's got me on a tight rein as far as my time I have availability to make decisions. But I guess my question or my thing on the fence would be is to do like what we've done as a green fence, which, it's undeveloped property there, but do nice, a metal fence, which may be a chain link or something, and plant creeping fig and Confederate jasmine on it so that it's watered like the rest of the golf course is and everything. And then it grows up over that. So within a year or so, it's like a green wall that can be trimmed and such as that. It looks really nice. And we usually, we call that a living wall or a green wall. But, as it gets to it, could, really having to meet those requirements on the fence could, triple or quadruple my cost on my fence is the thing on that. And it's, it is bordering property that's undeveloped. So for what that is worth, I put my comments.
And
Okay, thank you.
I'll just add from the planning staff perspective, we do have explicit lighting standards in the zoning ordinance. And it doesn't come up very frequently. When it does come up, it's typically a car dealership or something like that. We actually have the ability to go out and measure that light intensity at various property lines to make sure that it's compliant or not compliant with our ordinance.
Yes, sir, and I would understand that. And, I'm going to be direct. And as far as like timing, truthfully, I went to Auburn. I had 2 daughters at Auburn. I don't want this to be a place where people end up. I want it to be a place where they go out and eat, maybe play around the golf, then go somewhere else. So, I'm stating that, no one on the golf course. If we use the lights like this time of year, the lights will only be on for an hour and a half or so, because I would, plan on closing that down, the golf down by 9:30 or 10, and probably the restaurant, everybody out there by 11 or 11:30. And my target market to this, of course, there are college students there that would appreciate this, but my market and the reason for coming to Auburn is, the over 55, which I talked to Mr. Pick, he's developing a subdivision of a plus 55. But, Auburn has several demographics that you can approach, retired, different as that. So it's not really as a college place. I'm not looking at it as being a college restaurant or bar. And we look to do away with the pickleball because like the guy that's doing the restaurant with me said, you can't make money off pickleball, but you make money off a parking lot with somebody in there eating. So
All right, Mr. Marshall, you had your hand up. You have something to say?
Yes, actually, yeah, thank you. I think part of the first question, I guess, was answered. I assume the applicant wants to basically modify the waiver to include the fence as well as the buffer distance, I assume. And if that's the case, from Katie or for someone on the staff, could you remind us again, what is a type 3 fence? What that would normally be if we required the applicant to build that?
Sure. So you were breaking up a little bit, Marcus, but I think you were asking what the fence would be made out of?
Correct.
Question I
Okay.
have too.
Okay, so they're required a type 3 fence, which is basically a 6-foot masonry wall or a stucco type fence, or a 2-foot berm with a 6-foot stockade fence, which is basically a privacy fence on top of the berm with a decorative design and or columns of brick or stone.
So alternatively, the applicant wants I guess like a chain link fence with some sort of vegetation going through it that would thicken over time. That's the way I'm imagining it. Is that correct?
That's what I'm interpreting, yes.
But now is that actually before us? Is that part of the waiver?
This would be an additional waiver.
For okay.
Right, and two, I mean, I'm the applicant. This is Ron Watson again. You know,
Right.
I would love to. I mean, I would cater to that house. I would love to, make whatever could be right on that. Of course, we're not going to develop that 100 feet there on next to them. So there'll be nothing right next to them ever. If anything, it'll be another residential. So I mean, I want to try to make everyone happy. I'm just looking at a point to where I don't want, the price of this fence to run me out of being able to buy the lot.
All right. Okay, so after we had some of those explanations, this requires a public hearing. So if Greg, if I can get you to mute everybody, just to reset there. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing at this time. So is there anybody that would like to speak? I see you, Robin. Let me go through the public hearing real quick. Okay, I've got some hands on the attendees side for the public hearing. So let's start at the top of the list. Marion Doiron. Greg, can you give her a way to speak?
Will do, just 1 second.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear. We can hear you. Can you state your name and address, please?
Sure. This is Mary and Richard Doran. We live, we own the house at 1113 DeKalb, which is just down the block.
Okay.
And we love the idea of a miniature golf facility in Auburn. I think that's missing here. That's great. I'm concerned about parking. I'm concerned about traffic. DeKalb Street is a busy road. I don't want commercial traffic in and out. I don't want somebody from Dean cutting through our neighborhood down Twin Forks to DeKalb to cut into this. And so it looks like there's only going to be access from East University. Is that correct?
That is correct.
This is also a very busy intersection, very busy. The addition of a commercial property here is just going to increase traffic. What's the plan for an additional light or managing the lights between Shelton Mill and Dean on East University?
I'll have to leave that to the engineering staff. Is Ms. Frazier there? Well, let's hold off the answers to the questions. I'll make these questions after the public hearing. We'll answer them.
Okay, that's fine. It's a difficult intersection to make a left out onto East University. It's very filled with commuters. It's just a busy place to be. And so the addition of a commercial property concerns us. Also, we are living through some construction traffic on Twin Forks where there's no parking for the construction vehicle, the guys that are doing the job. They can't park. And so they're parking on the street, and it makes the street very small. I don't want that to happen to DeKalb. So I want to make sure that there's something available. There's a plan in place for the construction, traffic, construction, parking.
Okay.
And I guess that's all. I guess that's it.
Okay.
Oh, and the fact that this property butts up other empty lots that in fact butt up against our property. You know, if we let this property happen, you know, am I going to end up with a commercial property, you know, in my backyard?
Well, can you
If
go
you're
back to the other plat, Forrest? There you go.
So there's lots of empty space between DeKalb and like Shelton Lane. And my house butts up against all these trees. And I don't want a commercial property in my backyard. And I'm afraid that if we go down this slippery slope, that's what's going to happen.
Well, I'll just answer from a planning perspective. We do need to bear in mind that all the property in this area is zoned what we call comprehensive development district. And it's and these parcels in particular sit on major improved arterials. So it's certainly expected that some type of commercial use is going to locate there, with this being probably one of the least intensive of other possibilities that I can, conjure up in my mind. I do know at one point we did have a bank project come in at the hard corner with a drive-through, which is also on the relative spectrum of things, a very low traffic generator and a low intensity use. So relatively speaking, this is not a bad scenario for neighbors to be in, given the zoning that's in place in the area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I hear that. It doesn't mean that, that more is not coming.
Well, that's correct. You've got this parcel with this proposed development, and you have one other parcel at the hard corner, which has not been, we don't know for sure what may be proposed there or not. And
I think she's afraid, excuse me, I think she's afraid that the land Charles Pick owns.
Mr. Watson,
yes.
Please, I'll ask you after he's done. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
On the zone, on the sheet, the part that I'm most concerned about is the stuff that's in the yellow.
Oh, that's a residential only district, ma'am. You cannot have commercial use in the yellow area.
Okay, that's wonderful, because my house is just past this Chickasaw, whatever that road is.
Chickasaw Avenue.
Chickasaw, right. We're 2 doors down from Chickasaw. So if you're telling me that all that yellow is residential, then that's okay. I am worried about the traffic. I'm worried about parking, construction traffic, getting in and out of the intersection.
Okay, we'll address a couple of those things after the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Victoria Santos.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, state your name and address, please.
Sure, it's Victoria Santos, and I live on 876 Tulane Road. And I've got a couple of questions in addition to what Mary was talking about. How high is the clubhouse going to be? I know we talked about lighting in terms of the golf course, but I'm curious about how high the clubhouse is going to be.
Okay, we'll address that. What's
Okay.
another question?
I'm also concerned about the traffic there. Just trying to make a left from DeKalb onto University. Almost not no one does. People who live there do, but it's terrible. So I'm curious also about traffic pattern or lights that might go in there for the entrance.
Okay.
And I'm also curious, this proposal concludes pickleball courts, and then it also said, oh, they'll close after 9 o'clock. But now the pickleball courts might be coming out and the times might change. So what exactly are we looking at? Is this the finite? Are we looking at just the fencing for this particular property? I guess I'm confused about what exactly we're looking at.
Well, first of all, the applicant said he was going to do away with the pickleball courts. So I
Right.
don't know. That's one piece. And then what was the last part you just asked?
So we have the pickleball courts that are going to change, and then the time of operation. Originally was 8 or 9. And
The applicant earlier mentioned, he said 9:30, 10 o'clock time frame is when everything was going to shut down, and the clubhouse maybe a little bit later.
Right. Well, that's what I'm curious about. So what are we approving? Are we just approving the fencing here, or not we, but what are we considering?
We are considering the use.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
And we're considering a waiver that has to do with the distance between commercial or this sort of use and residential property.
Gotcha.
And so
I will also add, if I could, that just for the record, and I'm not suggesting the commission entertain this, nor did the staff recommend it, but if there was a desire to limit or make a recommendation for some type of limitations to provide certainty to the hours of operation, that is certainly fair fodder in a conditional use consideration.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Is that it, Ms. Santos? Or does it get something else?
I do have one more question. Is there also going to be any kind of environmental impact study done on this? I mean, I know it's not maximum impervious surfaces, obviously. It's a pretty green area, but I am still curious about what kind of environmental impact statements or studies.
Okay. We'll ask about that too then.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see, Nathan Moore.
Can you hear me?
Please state your name and address.
This is Nathan Moore. I live at 801 Choctaw Avenue, but I'm the adjacent property to the east, directly across the street from DeKalb.
Okay.
So I had a few questions. First, I agree, Mary and Katie. I'm concerned about, I know that there's no access or egress points on the eastern side, but I am concerned about people cutting through Twin Forks and DeKalb and trying to make that left turn. We like I think Mary said, there's already quite a bit of traffic on DeKalb already, and I'm concerned if there's been any traffic studies on what maybe an anticipated traffic.
Okay, we plan on addressing that after the public hearing, so we'll have somebody talk about that.
Okay. And then Also, so I noted, I saw in the documents online that I think like approximately about a half an acre on the eastern side, so basically the stuff directly across from my property, will be left undisturbed. How can I be assured that if this mini golf, enterprise is a booming success, that the land on the eastern side will not be used to expand, and where I have to see these people, see mini golf courses and stuff every time I walk out my door?
If I can answer that question very quickly. Any expansion of a conditional use requires it to go back before the Planning Commission and City Council in a public hearing.
Even if it's approved and built, and so even if we already approve this zoning change and they build it, if they want to expand, we have to do this all over again, and I would have to say?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then the last question, I don't know if you can really address this exactly, but I'm concerned, is this at all going to affect property values for residential properties that are adjacent to it? So specifically mine and then the few that are to the south.
That's not something that we can address the Planning Commission, I'm afraid.
That's okay, thank you.
That's economic impact. There's other places for that, I suppose. Okay, thank you. Next person I see is John Hartley. Still there?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Okay, please state your name and address.
John Hartley, and 775 Bruce Court. Bruce Court is a small circle off of DeKalb. It's a little bit further down than this current map shows, but
okay.
My questions early on were very much like whatever everybody else has said, but I noticed that there is that section buffer along actual DeKalb where they've planned to leave some space there. Do they plan to also leave trees in that space, or is it like we see with a lot of construction these days, where they go in and pretty much clear cut the lot before they start construction?
All right, we can address that. We'll have the developer address that after the hearing.
Okay. Also, this is semi-related, but on that piece of property where the buffer zone is now, there's a sign for Shelton Park that was built back when the neighborhood was originally under construction by Kerry Pick. And over time, that sign has become kind of dilapidated. There's not a homeowners association or anything maintaining it. And of course, the real estate company Kerry Pick that built the neighborhood is no longer maintaining that. I had contacted our city council person before about that, and they said they'd get back to me on it, and I haven't heard anything, but I would be willing, and I've talked to other neighbors who would be willing to help revamp that sign or improve its looks, because it's the paint's peeling and it looks pretty dilapidated. But we weren't sure if we had the right to actually make any changes to that sign, or
that's not really that's not really an issue that the Planning Commission can help with, but I think you kind of started in the right direction by talking to your city council member. And I don't know, Mr. Cotton, is there another place in the city they could perhaps go? You need to find the person that owns the sign and the property around it.
I would recommend they contact the actual property owner and have that dialogue with them.
How would we find who the property owner is?
Certainly. If you'd like to call my office in the morning, we can provide you that information almost immediately.
And your name?
My name's Forrest Cotton. I'm the planning director.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other public input? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. And then I'd like to ask Mr. Watson, I'll ask a couple of questions. I think we have a couple of questions for Ron Watson, and we have a couple of questions for Ms. Frazier. I don't see her on the list, though. Is Allison Frazier here today? Or somebody from engineering?
Yes.
Okay, you're in the room. Okay. All right, let's see. Probably Mr. Watson on a couple of these to start with. One of the questions had to do with lighting, and was how we mentioned that it was 15 feet. I thought. How tall are the lighting fixtures that are going to be out there on the field?
Okay, well, look at it as this way: is that you know, it's not going to be like lighting up a parking lot. It's going to be directional lighting, you know, for each screen and each set, and then there'll be probably low voltage lighting along the fairways or so. So there's not going to be a lot of ambient light coming from that. It's all going to be kind of directional light. And, you know, as I spoke earlier, I mean, don't visualize this as a, you know, as a big old pole with a light on it just shining light into the air. This is more directional, where it would be, you know, close to the green and shining down, so that, you know, I would say less than 50 feet away. We're in the midst with Higgins Electric now trying to get some quotes and design on that type lighting. But as I said, we're looking at something sort of into the parking lot type of a sidewalk or something of a hotel or something. Would be kind of what the ambient light would be.
All right. How about?
And here's the thing too, excuse me. I mean, you know, when you hit the ball, it doesn't go more than 20 feet in the air. So that's why I'm saying 15-foot light around the green should be plenty enough. I don't need to have it. I don't need to light up the whole sky. I just need to light up the 15 feet above the green.
Right. Okay, I understand. Can you speak to the trees on the east side of the property? I guess somebody was talking about there's no need to clear them, or can you say anything about that?
Yes, no, we plan to leave that as it is right now. And if we do anything in the future, you know, we may come back and do residential there that would be complementary to what's there.
Okay.
And we do have a preliminary plan that we've done, but we haven't turned that in. But that would be maybe the long-term plan for that would be to rezone that residential if possible, and put in a, you know, something to be like garden homes or something. 2 or 3 garden homes there. Sure.
The other thing, are you familiar with Ms. Santos asked about an environmental impact study? Is there any requirement to do anything like that, or were you planning on it, or?
Well, of course, when I purchase a property, I'll require environmental phase 1 or, you know, to get all that done. And, you know, so I guess there's never been anything there. I don't think there's anything that would impact it. There's nothing that we would do as far as activating or running that. You know, we're not going to have a barn where we're going to have, you know, tractors and all that type stuff. My business plan is all that comes in on a cargo trailer in the morning. They cut all the grass, they haul everything off. So there won't be any environmental like oil or stuff like that, such as for, you know, tractors or lawnmowers around.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Ms. Frazier, I think I've got a couple other ones here that it's mostly about traffic. I guess the 2 main things that I heard was, one, if there, you know, the way things grow in Auburn, the way I understand is as traffic gets, you know, heavier, then traffic studies are done, and then you upgrade intersections as appropriate. Is there any work being done at that DCAB entrance right there?
No, not at this time. One of the recommendations we had was, as this development is submitted, we need to look closely at it and see if a traffic impact study is warranted. We did not have any recommendations out of our comprehensive traffic study for any improvements at DeKalb and University Drive. Most of you may recall that years ago, the engineering department did recommend connecting DeKalb through, which would have helped some of the problems we're having or the residents are seeing now, but that connection was not recommended by the city council.
Okay. All right. So there's not going to be, at least in the very near term, there's not going to be any consideration of some kind of a traffic light there at that intersection at this time.
Not at this time. We can definitely take a look at it, put it in our work program, and do an analysis and see what kind of volumes we're experiencing in accidents, and see if a traffic signal is warranted.
Now, and the other traffic kind of issue that came up had to do with construction traffic. You know, the construction traffic that's going on there now is not part of this particular development issue, but how is construction traffic typically regulated? Like, for instance, if they go in here and start doing work on this particular property, what's the requirement for the developer and where do they park?
Depending on the location of the site, we look at the construction access as part of their development review team submittal. In my mind, the access for this would come off of the existing driveway that's poured on East University Drive, but the expectation would be that they contain their construction traffic in the site. It's large enough to do that.
Okay. And so can you just say anything to help out some of the concerns on the other I'm not sure where the Ms. Dorian was talking about construction traffic that's somewhere in that basic area, and that they had a lot of parking on the street. Is there anything that can be addressed there?
We can definitely take a look at it. That would be through our inspection services. It's probably the townhomes or multifamily homes being built on Twin Forks, just off of the road. But we can definitely take a look at it to make sure that it's still accessible via public safety vehicles.
Okay. Okay. I think that covers it. So now I'll go ahead and ask for any further questions, comments by the commissioner or motion.
Philip?
Yes, sir.
I think I have my hand up. I thought I did.
You do?
If it's not, can I make a statement, a comment?
Yes, sir. Your hand's up and I'm looking for next will be Robin and Mac.
Okay, well, I just want to verify, to put this in perspective, if the map we have in our packet and the map that's on our screen is correct, then some of the people speaking live in a CDD already. Is that correct, Forrest?
Yes, sir. That
I
is
know
correct.
one person.
So CDD extends down the northern side of DeKalb Street past Cornstalk Circle, and I don't know how far else it goes. So the person that was concerned about what goes on in the yellow behind her needs to be made aware that she lives in a CDD, which does indeed allow commercial. Which means my point I'm making is that this property is commercial property on a major commercial thoroughfare across the street and to the north and across the DeKalb Street, Shelter Mill to the north, I suppose. And then the property all the way down the northern side of DeKalb Street is CD. So this commercial property is in the middle of commercial zone property. So we have to treat it as this because although outdoor recreation wasn't something we envisioned as by right, but many of the uses allowed in the CDD are uses that make use of all the factors that this property has. Major thoroughfare, high traffic counts, close to a hard corner, half a mile from the mall, or maybe 3/4. So anyway, I just wanted to put it in perspective. This is a commercial property in a commercial area, and it is separated from, on the east, from the corner, the property owner that spoke, that's on the corner there, it's across the street from him as opposed to being directly abutting his property. And streets are often used, particularly a collector street. I suppose the cab would be considered a collector street. A collector street is often used as a demarcation point between zones.
Right. Okay. Good observation. Thank you. Mr. Lazenby, go ahead first.
Yeah,
Mac,
I'm here. Robin,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just got called on ahead of you. The concerns and things I'm hearing about traffic and lighting and so forth, without the pickleball courts, would the proponent give any consideration to just simply flip-flopping this site plan and put the clubhouse on the eastern side and get all the lighting and the activity further away from the residential areas that are marked in yellow? And that would also provide, if this does come very successful, you can add another 18 holes to the west.
You have a comment, Mr. Watson?
Yes, well, I mean, I really think that as far as being less evasive to that subdivision, that where we have it there with the interest, if not, I mean, if we try to split flop that and put it on the eastern side, then we're gonna have to try to come off the cab and or spend a lot more paving to get a street to the restaurant, which would also take up space for the golf course. So the building needs to be adjacent to where we're going to come off of East University to keep from having to come off the cab.
You'd just be a few hundred feet to the east and you would not have to come off of the cab. And I wouldn't want to consider a conditional use where you did. I compliment you for saving that lot, that corner lot. But if you just flip-flop that over, you've answered everybody's questions.
Well, but too, I mean, if you're in the restaurant business, I don't want to be behind some trees. I want to be by where I'm getting my access to the road there, so I can have my visibility and all.
Well, can we nip this one a little bit in the bud here, because this is about the use, and how we design the use is not really before us right now. So we've made the comment, and you know, I think you have a understanding of what we're talking about there. Why don't we just go ahead and move on? Robin Bridges.
I wanted to ask Katie, she mentioned that the fence would be a waiver separately. So that means later that would come back to us, or?
No,
Yes.
actually, that's an additional waiver that he is requesting today.
Sorry. Okay. Yes, that's why I was confused. All right. Thank
So
you, Katie.
we have two waivers. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay. When we get to the motion, we'll have to make sure we have those flipped. Okay. Let's see, Robin. Okay. So Marcus Marshall.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, yes. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was going to touch on, because it sounds like we have the waiver that's in the packet that is for the buffer distance. Then the applicant wants to add the waiver for the fence. Now, I guess my question is for Forrest, how would this work? How would this work in practice? Say if we decided to grant the waiver with the fence, nothing in the packet about the fence or anything. So would staff then determine what would be an appropriate fence based on what was said during this meeting, or how would that work?
Yeah, that is a somewhat of an unusual situation. I think it's just the fact of the matter that this particular waiver didn't come to light probably when it should have. But you know, you've got a couple of choices there. You could table that waiver request if you think you need more time and you think it's appropriate for staff to take more time to look at it, which would certainly be an appropriate call to make. If you deem that to be prudent, or like I said, each of those waivers stands on its own. Or you could condition a waiver, and you've done this in the past, where if it's an issue that you have a comfort level with the staff dealing directly with the applicant, you've done that in the past when you didn't necessarily have to see it again. So you've got multiple avenues available to you.
Just to follow up real quick for us. So I guess what I'm afraid of is that if we were to grant a waiver to the fence and we're not specific enough, even though the intent is to have a fence, couldn't he just turn around and say, well, that's wavered, I'm not going to have a fence at all, or what? Yeah,
I mean, in this case, he's proposing an alternative, and that was actually a question I had, but this came up late today. Certainly in an instance like this, I think it's reasonable for the commission to be able to have something to look at. So you know exactly what is being proposed so that you've got more information by which to make your decision.
Okay. let's see, who else is, Donette Reese?
Yes, and it's not that I have an issue with the fence or a waiver. I don't like that it's not actually a part of this packet that is before me right now, like in my hand. That's the thing I don't like about approving or not approving the second waiver that has just come up today.
I think that's very fair.
Yeah. Okay, well, that brings us to the time for votes. And the way, as I sit back and think about what we've got going on this particular issue, it looks like we have a vote for the use, a vote on the waiver, the 300-foot waiver, and then a vote on a waiver for the fencing. So what I'd like to do is just take each one up one at a time and consider them. So for the what I'd like to do is get a motion for a vote on the use to start with.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second
With staff comment.
on Lawn Golf USA to approve the use with staff comments. Any discussion? Okay, let's have a roll call vote.
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Jaeger,
Yes.
Lazenby,
No.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. The second thing we'll address is the waiver, and that is the waiver. Let me get my paper back over here. That is the waiver for the waiver to the special development standard requiring a 300-foot distance between commercial, recreational uses and residential uses. So do I have a motion on that?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, second. Any further discussion? Let's see. Who is Andy Goslin? With the hand raised.
I'm the architect on the project representing Mr. Watson, and I think he had some additional comments to make.
Well,
And
we're in a motion. After this one, we can we'll address that. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, motion and do I have a motion? Or I heard a motion in a second, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Can we have and since there's no further discussion by the commission, let's have a roll call vote, Amber.
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Jaeger,
Yes.
Lazenby,
No.
Marshall,
No.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Okay, before we have a discussion on the second waiver, Mr. Goslin, do you have a comment?
I was just bringing up that I think Mr. Watson wants to speak now.
Oh, well, I didn't see his hand. Go ahead. Mr. Watson, do you have anything further you want to say?
You need to unmute.
Yeah, you got to unmute.
I'm sorry. I was just saying, on this waiver with the fence, if we could, and we could do a cross section, and have it contingent upon approval of the drawings on the type fence and everything we're going to do. We could do a cross section and have it, detail of what we're going to do. Okay. If that would help out too.
I think that's reasonable. Okay, thank you. All right, so we come to the waiver on the fence. Any comments from the commission on that? Because I would like to kind of second what Ms. Reese mentioned, the fact that, I don't have anything in front of me, so it's really hard for me to make some kind of a decision on that. So I would I would vote to postpone that particular waiver until a date certain next meeting.
I agree.
That's a motion. I second that.
Well, I'll consider it a motion.
All right, I
I'll
can
make
make
a
a
motion.
motion.
Go ahead.
I don't know
Go
if
ahead,
the
Warren.
chairman can make a motion, but I
Oh,
can. I move that the request for a waiver on the fence be tabled until the date certain next meeting,
Just for the record, that would be May 14th.
May 14th.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and I just would like to, the only comment I'd make, this is probably directed at Mr. Cotton, is that I assume you'll be able to work with the applicant and get us what we need to see, you know, in terms of a waiver next meeting, and we don't necessarily have to put any conditions on that, do we?
No, that won't be a problem at all. We got plenty of time to work that out.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Amber, can you do a roll call vote?
Yes. Bledsoe,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Jaeger,
Yes.
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. We'll see that next meeting. Okay, let's move on to number 15, which is Glen Strip Retail, PL 2020-161. This is a conditional use recommendation for a commercial entertainment and road service. Ms. Kennedy.
Yes. So they're seeking a conditional use approval is for a drive-through fast food restaurant, which will be attached to a retail building. Thank you. Both the retail building and the restaurant would be permitted in the CDD zoning, but since there is a drive-through attached, making it a fast food restaurant, it is considered a road service use. So that's why we're discussing conditional use. The property itself, as I said, is CDD. It is adjacent to the Sanford Village PDD area, which is located East Glen and East Sanford Avenue intersection. The surrounding properties are a bank with a drive-through and a gas station, which are also road service uses, so it would be in line with its surroundings. The site plan that they submitted meets all of our requirements for this use. There was a few items mentioned in the staff comments. We do recommend approval though, with regard to those staff comments. We've not received any communication other than Auburn University, and what they wanted to mention was similar to what Mac mentioned earlier, this falls in line of that flight path for landing. And Mark Sterling with Auburn University wanted to point out that any building heights need to comply with FAA regulations in that regard.
Okay. All right, thank you. I see Mr. Baspin, you have any comments you want to make on that?
No, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, this requires a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. So anybody that would like to speak on this, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing, ask for questions, comments, or a motion from the commission.
Did I hear at packet meeting that this is not a part of the PDD that's currently been put in place for this project?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct. The PDD sits back behind it. That prox map probably helps better. You can see the cross-hatched area.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
I move to approve item 14 on the agenda with the staff comments.
15, this is Glen Strip Retail, right?
You may be on your PAC meeting, sir.
I did it again. Okay.
But I would take the opportunity, whoever made the comment, to bring to our attention about the height of that building is certainly appreciated in that proximity to the airport. But that airport is so elevated at that point, the height is not an issue.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Second? Okay,
Sec-
motion and
second.
second. Any further? Okay, motion and second. Is any further discussion? Okay, let's have a roll call.
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Jaeger,
Yes.
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Breitenbach.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Now we're back to Woodward Oaks. This one is an amenity lot, PL 2020-177. And Mr. Kipp.
Yes, sir. This is a request for conditional use, recommendation to City Council for an outdoor recreational use or subdivision amenity. It's for a pool and pool house within the Woodward Oaks development. It's actually part of Woodward Oaks Phase 3 that you approved in the consent agenda. The reason this is before you is because the, Forrest, you could go to the next slide real quick. The structures on the property on the amenity lot are greater than 500 square feet, making it its own primary use. So even though the amenity lot was approved as part of the overall development, it was never requested specifically as a recreational use within the conditional uses for the MDP. But basically, they're just wanting to build a amenity lot with two separate structures, one with kind of kitchen facilities for the community and a pool house. Staff did not have any major comments or concerns, did not receive any comments or concerns from residents, and we are recommending approval.
Okay, thank you. Then Mr. Basquin, comments?
Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this does require a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing at this time and ask anybody that would like to speak to raise their hand. And seeing no one, I will close the public hearing, ask for questions, comments, and or motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve of staff comments, item 15 on the agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, Amber, roll call vote, please.
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Jaeger,
Yes.
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Breitenbach.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. And on to the last one. This is a subdivision regulation waiver at 2316 Payne Circle. It's PL 2020-189. Ms. Robinson.
Yes, this is a request by Jay Tolan, and I believe Mike Marr is representing him this evening to the subdivision regulations to allow the frontage of Auburn Way, which is an alley, to act as the frontage of this lot to allow a single family home be constructed here. The property is in Mims Trail, subdivision, and either side of the lot is flanked with townhomes on either side. And the proposal is to have a single family residence here because it's in the corner of the street. It was difficult to have a townhome be situated here. And a similar waiver was, well, the same waiver was granted maybe a year and a half ago for the same curve in Pam Circle to the north to allow a single family residence there to have its frontage on Albans act as its street frontage to build a single family home. And staff does recommend approval. I will say that we have requested elevations to see if the rear of the home or the portion of the home that's facing Pam Circle, if it will also look like a front facade. I would recommend that it does. If y'all recommend approving this, and also to have a sidewalk connecting to the existing sidewalk on Pam Circle.
So are you suggesting that those would be conditions that we should put on it in a motion?
In this particular case, I think you do two things. I think it's very valid to know what the elevations look like, and you could request those, which we have, and we haven't obtained those. But I would not recommend that you put a condition on a subdivision regulation waiver that would deal with that facade appearance. I would think you would find out first, I think if you need more information to help you, that's fine, or you just go ahead and act on the waiver and approve it or deny it.
Were you able to get that a little bit a look at the other one that we approved?
I actually went out there. It was either Monday or Tuesday, and I was mistaken. That other lot has not been constructed on. They've done earthwork, but they have not gone vertical with construction.
Okay, but it's
actually,
the same.
Yeah, they have put in a proposal for that adjacent or for that lot to the north as well right now. They've pulled both permits at the same time.
Oh, okay. Let me ask a question, another question that's a little bit different focus. So is the frontage on Pam Circle, is the reason they want to basically turn the house around is because that's only 20 feet, right? Is that like basically too skinny for a driveway? I mean, what's causing? Why are we, other than maybe how to put the house on the piece of property might be the other aspect of it.
You're right, Phil. The minimum lot frontage for a single family home is in a performance subdivision is 50 feet. And the minimum requirement for a townhouse is 18 feet. So this met the requirement for a townhome, but it does not meet the requirement for a single family home.
Okay.
So they're asking for the frontage along Albans to act as its frontage, since it is over, goodness, 100 feet. I can't tell.
Yeah,
based on the slide.
Yeah, and bear in mind, the original master development plan for this development didn't contemplate single families. It was envisioned that it would be entirely townhomes. So this is somewhat of an after the fact fix or accommodation, if you will. I'm not quite sure why they just didn't extend an additional townhouse on the end of those adjacent units, because I think that was probably what was initially contemplated, but that's neither here nor there, but that is clearly why this is in front of you at all.
What requirement, so you mentioned that we could maybe get some information on the, what the frontage is gonna look like.
It's a very peculiar case because if you go out there, all the townhouses front along that courtyard. There's a subdivision amenity up there, up by the main road, the main spine road. And on Albans Lane, everything that fronts Albans Lane on the flip side are basically fences from people's backyards. So
right.
I think that's what really struck Commissioner McCord in particular as unusual, because it is a very unusual circumstance if in fact the frontage of these two individual residences faces basically fenced backyards, and the back is facing a courtyard area where every other building in that courtyard fronts the amenity. And I don't think that's the intent, but I do think it's interesting. It would be interesting to see what this thing is going to look like. And as we said before, Katie's repeatedly tried to get the information to and has not had success.
But that's how relevant is that to us approving this or not? I mean,
I would say it's indirectly relevant. I mean, I would want to know what that's going to look like, and I would think the neighbors would want to know what that's going to look like. But but as far as the actual waiver is concerned, I mean, you're not compelled to approve this waiver.
Right.
Of course, if you can put it back on the aerial, you can see the townhomes that are adjacent to it and the neighboring residents. There you go.
Yeah. Warren McCord, do you have your hand up? Would you like to say there?
Yes, since I raised those comments, I visited the site again and drove both ends of Alvin and Pam's Lane and Pam Circle. And as much as I would find this very odd, if they do it correctly, it can actually do no harm. And of course, that's why it would be nice to see the situation in elevations and so forth. You asked Bill the strict regulations, so we do have the right to ask for why are you doing this, and how then are you going to mitigate any second thoughts. But at the same time, we did approve it once before without the elevations away, and if they mess it up, it's their development. But I think we need to be very careful in the future when they come in. I don't know whether I was asleep when they asked for that first variance or not, but this, we've done it once, so they're asking us to do it again, and I can go along with it.
Yeah, because even if we see the elevations and we say, okay, I don't like that, that's not.
It's not the elevations, it's the layout, the way they situate the building on the lot, and I guess the elevations, because the reason we require a front and a back of a home is that they both normally they look differently.
Right.
And so.
Okay. All right. Mac, did you have something to say? Your hand's up there too.
Yeah, I'd move to postpone this until we got some of these other things answered, and to postpone until our next regular meeting.
Okay. Robin, your hand's up, but do you have anything to say, or is that up from before?
Oh, it must still be up from before.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the table. Right. I don't hear a second. It sounds like that motion dies on the table. We have another motion.
I move for approval, subject to meeting all the conditions specified in staff notes.
Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't. Jan, I think you broke up. Well, so I have a motion in a second, though, don't I?
Second, yeah.
And I have an additional comment. I think that I agree with Katie. The sidewalk needs to be added.
I would agree to that addition to the motion.
So is that an amendment now that we've had a motion in a second?
No.
Well, we can vote on the amendment.
And the amendment motion was to add the sidewalk on St. Albans. Is that what you were saying?
It's on Pam.
Oh, on Pam. Oh, to go to the house?
Yes.
Oh,
No. Katie, can you explain that? Oh, is it installed already or not?
I think we're losing Katie. Yeah, there is sidewalk here.
Okay.
correct. My suggestion was to have the sidewalk to the house connect to the public sidewalk, just
Yes.
as the townhouse sidewalks are shown.
Okay, so I can remove that then. I thought it was not fully sidewalk on Pam, because now I understand what you're saying, and that would technically be the side and or back of whatever they build here.
That's correct.
Okay,
So withdraw that amendment,
yes.
or do we need? Okay, so then we go back to the original motion, which is to approve this waiver. And we have a motion and a second. So now we'll, if there's no further conversation, let's have a roll call vote, please. Amber?
You got it. Bledsoe,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Jaeger,
Yes.
Lazenby,
No.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. And that brings us to the end of our adventure today. Mr. Cotton, do you have any staff communication?
No, sir. Just want to appreciate everybody's on the commission's indulgence and working with us on this unusual setup tonight. I thought it went as well as could be expected, and hopefully as time progresses, sooner rather than later, we'll be able to get back to our normal meeting format. But thank you all for your assistance and cooperation.
Yeah, and I would like to thank all of the other panelists that represent the developers and the builders and everybody that also spoke. Thank you for hanging in here with us, and I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much. See you next time.